Utah basketball takes down BYU 73-72 in the first edition of this rivalry game on the hardwood in the Big 12. Mitch Harper, Steve Bartle, BYU and Utah insiders for KSL Sports. Steve, this was a crazy game. Goes into overtime. Utah gets the win. Both teams back and forth. It was tug of war, as Craig Smith said. Huge win for Utah.
Craig said a lot. He said a lot of things, but it was definitely.
As he said, he had all night. It was a big win.
He could talk all night. And, this game, it was a back and forth, right? It was. And we saw that throughout the game. BYU would go on a run. Utah would respond. I think to start the second half, the way that Utah did, I think they went on something like a 14-2 run to get back into that game. I thought that was the key for Utah to get back into it, to send a message essentially to BYU, like, hey, this is going to be a fight, this is going to be a battle. And the two teams just continue to throw haymakers throughout the rest of the second half. I thought it was a great game.
Second half, I thought a tone setter for Utah. They out-rebounded BYU early, 9-2. Yeah. They got things going in the paint. BYU has not won a game yet when they're out-rebounded. They're one of the top teams in the Big 12 in rebounding the basketball. Utah out-rebounds BYU tonight, 47-44. I thought that was significant in this game. And, both teams missed free throws down late. And it felt like, who wants to win this game? And BYU had a broken-up play late with Yegor Demon to try to, pull off a miracle. But, BYU can't find ways to win road games right now, and Utah capitalized.
Yeah, Utah did. And this was a big one for Utah, I think, right? Coming off 2 straight wins in the Big 12, over Oklahoma State, coming off the road win against TCU, you were hoping that momentum for Utah would carry and translate into this one, and it certainly did. It was ugly at times. It was difficult to watch, particularly on the offensive end for Utah, but they just continued to battle. And I think that was the big lesson that Utah learned in their first 3 games in the Big 12, is just how tough this league is, how tough you got to be to compete in this league. And they brought their lunch pail throughout the 45 minutes. They hung tight, they held tough, and they mucked it up on the defense side of the ball and made it difficult for guys like Richie Saunders, Igor Denham, and those guys. And particularly the interior defense, I think, was a big key in this one as well. Made it tough and just made BYU a little bit more inefficient than they typically are, right? This is a high-profile offense, strong on the boards and that sort of stuff. But I think Utah did a really good job, as you mentioned, out-rebounded and got to the free throw line. They didn't shoot it well, but when they get to the free throw line a lot, they have success. They're 7-1 when they have a free throw rate of 34.5%. They were well above that tonight.
Ezra Soar has 26 points, a game high in this game. Let me ask you, Steve, what do you think was running through Utah fans' mind when Trevin Knell went to the foul line on that? Was it a feeling of the football game again?
Yeah, dude.
Where it's like it was running through my mind.
Trevin Knell, are you kidding me? He's a shooter.
There was a screen, and I was like, oh, buddy, we're going to be covering something pretty crazy again. But Trevin, he missed those shots. I mean, and that's going to be tough for him. Trevin. I think what's interesting about this game is that there is another crack at between the two teams in March. So Trevin will have a chance to kind of redeem himself a little bit in this series, in that game in March. But that's tough stuff. I mean, to miss the front end. Hunter Erickson, a guy that was once Trevin Knell's teammate, he had an air ball, and Craig Smith talked about how he was still remained aggressive. That's pretty impressive mindset. I thought Hunter Erickson late was pretty big for Utah too.
Yeah, 3 of 4 from the free throw line, especially making 2 after you airball the second of the 2 that you shot before. Trevin Knell, he's a good player, right? Yep. Good player. Made some big buckets for BYU tonight, but just had the one miss at the worst time. And fortunately for Hunter Erickson, he had an opportunity to go back and redeem himself. And I think that was big for him to respond in the way that he did. Obviously, given his history at BYU, he mentioned the fact that this game isn't personal, but
Ezra Soar had, what was he saying? It was his quote?
It was his beef.
It was
their beef.
It was their beef.
It wasn't my beef. It was their beef.
That was a good quote. Both teams now 11-6 overall.
Yeah.
Utah 3-3 in the Big 12. BYU 2-4. Next up for the Utes, I believe Houston coming up, and then for BYU, it's Colorado in Boulder on the Front Range. So life in the Big 12. It's not easy. It's a grind in this conference. So Steve Bartle, Mitch Harper, check out all of our coverage on KSLSports.com.